In this video, I'm gonna be going over one of the most annoying parts of fat loss, and that's when you run into a plateau. All right, so I know some of you are probably going through right now, or you haven't ran into it yet. I know for me, in my 2.5 years of losing 70 pounds, this happened to me pretty frequently. So in this video, I want to go over exactly what I did to get through them, how I approached them, and then in the end, I'll give you some practical tips and things that you can do so that you can continue to keep pushing and losing the weight and get to the body that you want to get to. All right, but before I get into it, my name is Mugalero. I'm somebody who was overly fat and got myself back into shape. And I'm here to help you do the exact same thing for you so that you can look the best, feel the best, and just, be the best, because we all trying to be the best versions of ourselves. You feel me? So if you're new here, please subscribe to the channel so that you can stay updated and locked in with me and, to help the channel out, obviously, to grow the channel and, yeah. But if not, I feel you. It is what it is. But without further ado, plateaus. All right. So in my 2.5 years of losing 70 pounds, there was really only two reasons for a plateau, right? And starting with the most common one, it's when you think you're doing everything you need to be doing, but you're really not, right? And there's a couple different layers to this, but I'll go through three of them. So the first one is when you're overeating on food, right? And I'm somebody who I advocate for tracking your food. I think that's definitely the most efficient way to go about it. But even if you're not somebody, if you don't track your food, one way that, you overeat, and, for me in my journey, like there would be times where there are certain foods that you might not want to track or you feel like are insignificant to track. And for me, that was always foods like oil, butter, like barbecue sauce, condiments, things like that. But the thing that you got to realize and recognize is those are things that can add up pretty quick, right? So if your calorie deficit's like 2,000 calories, and let's say you cooked over the stove top and you used some butter and then you added some barbecue sauce, you didn't track it, it's like that could be an extra 300 calories that you just added to your daily intake, which is bringing you from, thinking that you're at 2,000 calories to really eating 2,300, right? So I think the best way to approach overeating, like I said before, is to just track your food or to keep a record of what you're eating. But it's really just comes down to being aware. And, you can do that in a couple different ways. Like I said before, tracking your food is the best way of going about it, at least from my experience. But, just staying consistent in eating, similar portions throughout the course of the day is also another way that you could approach it if you're not tracking your food. All right. And then the second layer of it is just not moving enough, right? If you're working out, you're walking, exercising, and you're just not going as hard as you need to, or you're not going 100%, this is something where, it's not studied or nothing like that. Obviously, I'm not a doctor or nothing, or, I ain't no doctor, but I'm just saying, like, when you're not doing everything you need to be doing when it comes to the effort level and the intensity of workouts and movement, then you're just leaving room on the table for, you're just leaving room on the table for, I'm not going to say failure, but, coming up short. So, another way to approach that is to really just challenge yourself. Like, you got to challenge yourself to go hard. You got to challenge yourself to just get through every rep, every set. If you can do more, don't, your body might tell you, your mind might tell you to like, this is enough, but push through that, because at the end of the day, that's going to be, what gets you to the body that you want to get to. And not even just the body, but even the mind to, have the mental strength to continue to keep going. All right. And then the third layer, this one, when you're on for 2 weeks and off for one, and the buzzword for this is consistency, right? If you're just going to the gym, 2 days here, next week you're going for one or not at all, then this is when you're going to start seeing your results fluctuating and the scale fluctuating. And, that's something that we just don't want to see happening. Right. And I actually, during my experience, like I said before, it took me 2.5 years, but really I lost all of my 70 pounds in 16 weeks, but the 2 years in between, it was just me doing exactly what I just said, where I would show up for a couple weeks and I track my food, be in the gym, walking, drinking water, doing everything that's required. But then the next week I wouldn't do it for whatever reason. And I say all that to say, like, you got to define your level of consistency and then you got to stick to it, right? You got to write out a plan and you got to stick to it. And for everybody, it's going to be different for everybody. Like, mine might not be yours. When I was going through my journey, I had a bunch of time in the day and I could focus on this for 6, 7, 8 hours. And, I could just cook food whenever. Whereas for you, you might have a busy schedule, you might have kids, whatever the case may be. So you might have to, meal prep and really diligently plan out your day and your exercise. And, you're going to have to diligently plan how you're going to approach it. And, if it's only 3 days a week, it's only 3 days a week. If it's twice a week, it's twice a week when it comes to working out, but for this, you got to define your consistency. You got to show up in the best way that you can to make it easier for you to get to the goal weight that you want to get to. All right. So for overeating, track your food, record your results. For not moving enough, you got to compete with yourself, challenge yourself, push yourself to be the best that you can be. And then lastly, for inconsistency, make a plan that you can follow so that it's easy for you. All right. For the second reason for plateau, this is when your body is adapting, right? So this is actually the plateau that we want to see. This is the plateau we'd much rather have, and this is why. All right, again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physiologist. I'm just somebody who did a lot of research and went through it for myself. But when you're doing everything right, the calorie deficit, sleeping right, eating right, moving right, sometimes this is just a sign that your body's adjusting. Like, your body could be holding a bunch of water weight, could be retaining water, it could be gaining back muscle weight. You don't really know what's going on inside your body. It could be digesting, whatever it might be. But I do know that this tends to happen a lot, or it happened a lot for me. And the key for this is more mental than anything. And it starts with just embracing and accepting, like, hey, this is just a part of it, right? If you've gotten to this point, you got to recognize that, hey, this is just going to happen. And, I went through it, multiple times. Like I said, every other week, it seemed like I'd be losing like 0.1 pound a day for like a week and a half. And it's like, well, damn, what's going on? It's easy to get discouraged. But one thing that I realized after all my time of doing it is, like, this is a part of the journey. And the best thing that I can focus on and do is continue to do all the things that I've been doing, which is, going to the gym, eating right, moving getting some movement in, and just continuing to do that, as many days in a row as possible, or in your own way, right? In your own consistent way. And then the second part of it is just having patience. You got to give your body the time. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be moments where, your body's just going to take long to adjust. It's going to take, longer to do what it got to do. But like I said, the best thing you can do is just do what you're doing, embrace it, and then just be patient and allow it to do it. It's kind of like basketball, really, right? Like, you look at some of the best players, like a Steph Curry. Like, there are times where I've seen Steph Curry go 0 for 8 from 3, but he's the greatest shooter of all time. So it's like, it's not like he forgot how to shoot or wasn't in the gym working on a shot and making a bunch of them in the morning. Sometimes that's just the way it goes, and you just got to embrace it and keep moving, and it's on to the next one, on to the next day, on to the next workout, the next meal. Then, you just got to keep pushing. All right. So, but here are 2 practical ways that, I'd say help me to stay confident and helps keep me motivated to keep on going. And the first one is just not to rely too heavily on the scale. Like, obviously, that's one of the main things we're always going to use to record our fat loss and our progress. But, another way is to trust your intuition, right? Like, use the mirror and, look. Like, for me, one thing that I'd always notice is like, oh, like, I look slimmer like in my arms, or like I'm getting more veins, in this area of my body than, I didn't have before. Or it's like my, my jawline, whatever it was just like, I'd be like, dang, okay. Like, and sometimes you might question, it's like, wait, am I getting skinnier there? But it's important that you trust that, because you're probably right, because you know your body more than anybody else. So, that's one thing that I would do that helped a lot, is to just not rely too heavily on the scale. Obviously, how your clothes fit is another great way to recognize, how your progress and, where you're going. The second one is, before I'd get on the scale every morning, you know, I would just, have that internal dialogue with myself, and I would just play the guessing game. Like, I would guess, okay, I did everything right yesterday. Yesterday I was, 210, feeling like I probably lost like a good pound today. And, sometimes I'd be right, sometimes I'd be wrong, but one thing that did was it kept me engaged. And it was also like, it was also, it kept me engaged, but it was also a fun game that, kind of took my mind off of just like the regular grind of, hitting the gym and eating right. And, it's always fun to be right too, like, especially there'd be times where, I'd be right and I'm like, let's get it. It's like, it's kind of like an instant dopamine spike. But then at the same time, there'd be times where you'd be like absolutely like out of the water wrong. Like, you'd be so wrong that it's like, dang, there'd be times where I'd gain like 2 pounds, 3 pounds, life happened. I might eat like some cake, a birthday cake or something at a party, but it's like, or drink some alcohol. It's like, dang, I think I gained like maybe a pound or two. And the whole time I gained like 4 or 5 pounds. I'm like, come on, bro. Like, come on, man. But then the flip side of it is sometimes you're like, yeah, I feel a little heavy. It's like, I might be up like 3 pounds and you're down 4 pounds. It's like, oh, it's like those be the best moments and like the best, right? And you might be thinking like, bro, come on, like really? Like a little game like this? But, sometimes you got to do things like this to stay engaged and to keep yourself going, And, that's what worked for me. I was able to get from, 265 to, 190. So, and we still going. But yeah, these are the main reasons for plateaus in my experience. But let me know your experience, like what's going on with you, how you're plateau, how long have you been plateauing? Let me know in the comments down below what's going on with you. But that's it for me, man. If you found this video helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel to stay locked in and updated. And I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.